Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
If manners make a man, as someone said, then he's the hero of the day. We can hear it in his accent when he talks. He's an Englishman in New York, which is my way, ladies and gentlemen, of welcoming our special guest today, an Englishman in New York, Terence Mauri. How you doing, Terence?
Hey, Tom. Great to be on the show.
Did you like that? Not my rendition of it, which may have been just off, but did you ever like that song? I always quite like that song, I always thought it was very evocative.
Sting's song is great. It's one of my favorites. And I grew up in Stratford-upon-Avon, the birthplace of Shakespeare. So I think you have an inner poet in you.
Thank you. I was going to say, it's about time someone put Stratford-upon-Avon on the map, right?
Exactly.
And I have to say, it's great to have you on, because I feel like Tim can maybe vouch for this, right? That if I was to think of a meta theme for the first quarter of DEX shows of 2025, I'm gonna say disruption. We've done a lot of stuff around Assist 2.0, as listeners will know. We launched the transformation report about AI transformation. And speaking of poet, you're something of the poet of disruption, we might say, Terence, right? When you tell people a little bit about your work.
I love the framing. And it's true. I think disruption is one of these words that's misunderstood. It's overused, often becomes a buzzword and loses its specificity. But I'm interested in the upside of disruption, because I think on the other side of disruption, whether that's technology change or talent scarcity or industry convergence, is the upside. And the upside is the opportunity for reinvention, could be a new service, a new product, a new platform. And I think one of the big takeaways today that I want to explore with you guys, with your listeners and viewers, is this idea that we always overestimate the risk of doing something new and always underestimate the risk of standing still. And that's really at the sort of central call to action around disruption. Even job titles are being disrupted, by the way. I had a meeting at the State Department recently, and we exchanged business cards. And on the business card, it said head of uncertainty. Imagine the no pressure.
Yeah, okay. Maybe the king of uncertainty. It might be, but I do think, particularly with AI, Terence, right? Like I'm sure what you say is right in general, but tell me if you disagree. But with AI, there is a consensus that people need to move, and as much as there's that urgency about it, there's also a sense of like an awareness that yes, you can jump too late, but you can also jump too early, right? Like it's a push and pull.
I think we have to avoid what I call artificial idiocy. And as I play on the words AI. And what I mean by that is that I agree, AI is a here to stay secular and structural trend, presenting tremendous risk, but also tremendous opportunity. I think one of the things we're missing right now with AI is it's largely an automation story for many organizations and the media as well. And I'm interested in an elevation story. And in fact, in my new book, The Upside of Disruption, I talk about two narratives around AI: warm AI, which is humanity first, enabled by AI, and cold AI, which is machine first, often at the expense of, at the cost of loneliness or well-being. And I feel that a lot of CapEx is going into cold AI at the moment at the expense of warm AI.
And it's something okay, so think about that what warm AI looks like in real terms, right? You're seeing a lot of AI naturally launched at the moment for non-technical users. And I mentioned Assist 2.0. We did a series of shows about that, but listeners should check out if they missed them, which is effectively putting, highly sophisticated DEX insights into democratizing those insights effectively. What kind of opportunities and risks, Terence, does that kind of power of AI put in democratized offer to organizations, in your view?
So I think, in terms of the key difference here, it's one between value extraction and value creation. It's one between AI that actually creates an ultra processed world where we're drowning in information and drowning in data, and a world where actually we achieve what's called ROI, which is not just return on investment, but my new human metric for a post-AI world, return on intelligence. The research is unequivocal. Around 70% of our time every week is spent on bureaucratic activities at the expense of intelligent activities. If there's one thing that AI could do to help us be more productive, lead more meaningful lives, higher value and more intelligent driven lives, it would be to democratize, but also to delete and disrupt, automate, remove, subtract a lot of this bureaucratic, bad bureaucracy that we have to deal with, whether that's too many meetings, too many processes, duplicative structures, or just ways of thinking that have gone off like yogurt in the fridge.
And so, Tom, I'll agree with you. I think the first part of the year, there's been a lot of talk about disruption in my travels around the world. I've seen not just excitement about the opportunities of AI, but I would characterize it as nervous excitement. And I think it covers a lot of what, Terrence, what you're referencing. That, is the fear of moving forward justified, or is it the traditional FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's something new. It could be dangerous, but we're not quite sure. I agree with you too that a lot of it has almost been fairly simplistic in the way it's talked about, leveraging it mostly for automation. But AI, in my view, is really an advanced way to get information or answer a question, right? We've used Google forever. You Google your question, you get tons of results back. But this gives you very specific, detailed answers to your question. But you talk about it in the context of next level decision making. How do companies prepare for that shift? Right? Is data driven decisioning already ingrained in us and it's not that big a deal? Are we already prepared, or do we need to do something else to get ready for that next level decision making?
Yeah, I love the question. It's a catalytic question. It's a question that doesn't just make us feel good, but makes people think hard, and that's important. I think AI is completely misunderstood. The CEO of IBM today said that 99% of data has not been touched by AI in enterprises. And two of the biggest challenges we're facing right now, data quality and speed to insight. And so obviously organizations are drowning in multi-layers of complexity. For example, the average number of apps for a large enterprise and S&P 500 is over 600. So we've got legacy, we've got tech debt, we've got different levels of hierarchies, and all of this creates all sorts of complexity, which is a tax on our ability to really harness the full intelligence, the full insight of our AI platforms. So I think that's the challenge, and that's the opportunity actually. And I agree with you. I think most organizations are trapped between the panic zone and the opportunity zone. The panic zone and the complacency zone. And I think we need to sort of look at a third space, a third zone, which would be the learning zone, the sandbox zone, the iterative zone, the zone where we're really kind of, a simple call to action would be, what's a simple experiment we can do with AI over the next 30 days to create our own AI use case and get started on this journey? That would be a great call to action straight away.
So some other things I've been hearing as I travel, kind of divergent thoughts. The first is, we won't need experts anymore. I'll just ask AI. AI will be my intelligence. I won't need intelligent people. I'll just need the artificial intelligence, and I'll rely on that more and more over time. You see that even in Microsoft as they move to using AI to do the majority of their coding. This notion that AI is going to be my full-time intelligence. But on the other hand, the divergent alarm that some experts are starting to set is this concept of AI eating its own tail, and that the model will eventually collapse, that the data it's consuming to make decisions will be the data that was generated by AI. And that data, is it always accurate? We see it often that the questions that are asked into AI result in bad data, or it leverages the wrong information to give you bad answers, and that eventually AI and the models will collapse because it's just all regurgitated bad data. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that kind of that soft skill of asking the right question and deciphering the data that it returns back to determine if it's good or bad. Where what do you feel about the skills that it actually are needed to leverage AI to its fullest?
I think one of the interesting perspectives here, and I sort of think about the research by Ethan Mollick, for example, a great researcher on AI, is I think one of the, this kind of idea that too much information leads to a poverty of attention. And I think how we harness this intelligently, so that, the querying, for example, the questioning is a real imperative. I agree. I think in terms of the upside, and I talk about a lot about the upside, using AI as a consultant, as a service, for example, not just as yeah, as a co-pilot, as a co-thinker, as a co-strategist, is where the upside is. But I also think there's a risk of the curse of sameness. And what I mean by the curse of sameness is this really interesting paradox. When everyone's got access to the same cheap AI, the same data, how do you actually differentiate yourself? Um, that's the real dilemma here. That great, we've all been democratized, we've all got access to AI, but then how do you differentiate yourself? It's a genuine question as an individual, as a business, as an enterprise, when you've all got access to the same zero cost AI. And by the way, we know that the cost of AI models has dropped over 280x in the last 2 years. So that's the dilemma that I'm interested in exploring as well, which is actually what will become more scarce when everyone's got access to the same data, the same information, the same democratized AI. Well, actually, what will become scarce is human intelligence, human imagination, empathy, deep trust as opposed to shallow trust. So, two takeaways here. One is be aware of the curse of sameness. And two, what the world needs right now more than ever, a willful contrarianism.
I couldn't agree more that the need for empathy, the need for creativity, both in how we interact initially with it, as well as how we analyze the results, what we're going to do with it. I think that's what differentiates us. If we've all got access to the same models, the same data, it's going to be how the human interacts and leverages it and actually uses it to its fullest. These intelligent systems are becoming more conversational, more embedded. I've told this story before, not long ago, preparing for a roundtable that I was participating in. I asked ChatGPT what roles will start to leverage AI more and more, what new roles will develop. And it came back, and one of the items it said was DEX strategist. And in parentheses next to it, it said wink, wink, because that's my title. And it made me sit up and say, now who programmed ChatGPT to have that level of interaction and almost humor, right? So
That has him. Use
I mean,
not software as a service, right?
what's exciting about that, Tim, is this idea that AI is the worst it will ever be today. AI is the slowest it will ever be today. So imagine
yeah,
after all another 3 years, 5 years, we don't even have to speak about 10 years. I'm talking about the next 36 months. So I think that's really interesting. And I think alongside that, what we're not talking about enough is the psychological revolution. We're so focused on the technology revolution and the AI revolution, and it's exciting. It sucks up all the oxygen in the room. But we can't actually harness the full potential of that without a psychological revolution. What I mean by that is, if I go into most organizations today, they're still using the same organizational playbooks that they used 100 years ago, quite literally, in the way that they approach the working day, meetings, committees, um, breaking down, bundling and unbundling of jobs. So that's what's interesting to me, and that's the risk and opportunity again, which is we've got this incredible access to superpower now, only limited by our own imaginations, but without that psychological and organizational revolution to support it, we risk artificial idiocy. It's a bit like getting a Ferrari or a Porsche and actually still, only going 5 miles per hour in it because we don't know how to use it.
and I think that idiocy is learned over many decades of ingrained process, ingrained hierarchy in our organizations, We're stuck in status quo, so we look at things in the context of what we've done versus
Just as
the
the
art of the
yesterday.
possible and what exactly right. And to get back to this concept of taking those old ideas, those old methodologies, and disrupting them, right? There's some very visible tech leaders right now who have a strong disruption mindset, but that when it's done incorrectly, we can see that disruption can really cause severe havoc, right? So you said that this mindset is a strategy, and mindset can really change how technology is viewed, how it's designed, how it's implemented. Talk about mindset. What mindset do these leaders of digital, call them digital leaders, how do they lead effectively through this disruption and avoid the chaos?
Interesting questions, a pivotal question right now, a question of our times. And, I'd spent some time working with Revolut recently, and we know Revolut for, being really a sort of future ready frontier company in banking and sort of neo banking. But actually, they're going to start disrupting the telecoms market next. They've decided that, and this is the interesting thing about these pioneer disruptors, which they're not just focusing on one vertical, one industry. They can actually disrupt multiple verticals, and that's the scary truth for anyone listening today. That your next biggest competitor could be a Revolut, could be a company you've never actually heard of, VC backed. And so I think in terms of those collective mindset shifts that we're talking about, economies of scale to economies of sustainability and economies of light speed, ecosystem to ecosystem, preservers of the status quo to challengers of the status quo, Homo sapien to techno sapien, data silo to collective intelligence, and wait and see to learn and explore. Do faster than doubt would be a key call to action right now. I spent some time, I met Jesse Armstrong, the chief writer behind Succession. One of my favorite sayings from that show, a brilliant show, by the way, is you can't make a Tomlet without breaking some Greggs. And Jesse Armstrong, yeah, he iterated the script over 100 times with his team. And one of their mottos is start before you're ready or don't start at all. And I think in this moment of extreme liminality, in this moment of high speed unreality for many, actually not taking a risk is a risk when it comes to AI.
Interesting. And extreme liminality is super cool, Terence. I know you've also written about trust as a kind of currency in this emergent world. Thinking maybe describe your ideas about trust and why it's so significant, and then relate that, if you can, to how technology teams at organizations can build trust as they start to roll out these very disruptive new tools.
If trust was on the dashboard right now, it'd be flashing red. The writer George Orwell would love these times, but not in the right way. We have meme warfare, deep fake. We heard recently that one of the finance team at Arup, the engineering company based in, well, this was the Hong Kong office. He saw a deep fake of his CFO, and it was so believable that he transferred $25 million, but he did it in 25 transactions. And here's an interesting question for you. If you saw your CEO on the screen, how confident would you be to know that it was him or her or a deep fake? Last year, it was about 66% confidence. This year, it's 33% confidence. But the question actually is irrelevant. At some point very soon, you won't know the difference. And if cybercrime and truth decay and trust and ethical breaches were a country, they'd be the third fastest growing country on the planet right now. Global GDP over $11 trillion, growing at a compound annual growth rate of over 28%. We've seen some big examples in the last 18 months. Snowflake, healthcare companies. The average data breach will cost you between $6 and $10 million. It will affect your stock price by 7 to 9%. And trust is the number one driver of enterprise value, but it's never been more tested and more under attack. And trust is the ultimate human currency in this age of AI and acceleration and automation. And so for me, if I break down trust, we're going through different evolutions of trust: institutional trust, local trust, distributed trust, which is enabled by technology, and then auto sapient trust, which will be, you'll have the equivalent of a chat GBT that will be your UI, your user interface, and you will decide what to do through that particular chatbot. Auto sapient trust. And the organizations that own that own the trust, own the ecosystem, and own the value chain. So trust is a big deal. It's time to rethink trust: physical, digital, ethical. And I think it's never been more under pressure.
I already fall for just about every phishing scam going, Terence. So they don't need to invest so heavily to pull me in. Who was it you sent $25 million though to some
Yeah,
feedback
engineering company. And basically, I was at Microsoft recently. They're just Microsoft, just one company. They're dealing with 7,000 password attacks a second, and that translates into 600 million a day, 2 trillion a year. Now compound that by different companies, and we go beyond the cognitive limits of these numbers. But this is the interesting paradox again: as AI gets more and more advanced, exponential speed and scale, so does deepfake, so does cybercrime, so does data breach. They're in parallel together.
That's wild, I have to say. Um, I've kind of touched upon it already, but what's going to separate, what's going to distinguish those technology leaders at organizations who can drive genuine, enduring change, as against those who just react to it and dole it out, take it on the chin?
I think what you said there was exactly the right word. Don't react, but respond. And it's about, I called it be proactive, pro-resilient, pro-experimentation, pro-growth. So it's really the pros. And I spoke about this dilemma that most companies are trapped between the panic zone and the complacency zone. Recognize where you are and get into the learning and growth zone. That's the first call to action. The second call to action would be aware of the rubber band effect. Right now, we're all growing, we're stretched, we've got aspirations, but our rubber bands snap back into place very easily. As Tim said right at the beginning, we're kind of prisoners of orthodoxy. We're prisoners of a ton of years of doing things the always done ways. And you can't achieve the full potential of the technology revolution without a leadership revolution. In fact, AI is not just a technology challenge. That's one of the biggest mistakes we can make. It's a leadership challenge.
What about below the leadership level, Terence? What about all of us taken together? What's the most important mindset shift that you think is most urgently required on a mass scale as we all seek to sort of successfully navigate this fast changing world?
There's a lot of fear out there. We've got fear of missing out, FOMO. We've got fear of becoming obsolete, FOBO. We've got fear of messing up, FOMO. Apart from that, we've got burnout, record levels of burnout costing $1 trillion a year. We've also got bore out. I was at an organization in Paris recently. An employee successfully sued their company for bore out, cognitive underload. And watch out for the rise of bore out. As more and more of parts of our role are kind of automated, bore out, cognitive underload, being bored at work is going to become a real thing. Unless we are rebundling roles in a way that creates new challenges, new meaning, new purpose. So I think, we saw a couple of days ago, Gallup released its latest annual engagement survey, and the score's going down again. I think it's like record levels now in the wrong direction. And my point is, we can't achieve these incredible upsides of disruption without motivated workforces, resilient workforces that have hope. And look, as somebody that comes from Stratford-upon-Avon, it's important today to introduce a new word into the conversation, an ancient English word that hasn't been used for a long time, but I'm going to share it with you for the first time today. It's the opposite of despair. It's called Respair. And Respair is hope in the future, fresh optimism, fresh hope, Respair. And we need an agenda of Respair now. in this 2025, because despite all this disruption around us, there is an upside.
Terence, you may have a remarkable repertoire of neologisms and brand new acronyms, but you're speaking a lot of sense, my friend, and it's been a great pleasure to have you on. Very stimulating. Where can people find any upcoming or very recent books you want to plug? Where can people find you and contact you?
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to have a great double espresso conversation. And it's refreshing to not just talk about AI, but also some of the risks around that. But I think it's those with the vision and responsibility, and those that have ethical leadership as well, that will really harness the upside. I think, first of all, my new book, The Upside of Disruption, is worth checking out. And number two, my website, terencemauri.com. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so join my community. And I'm often speaking around the world. Tomorrow I fly to Stockholm to speak to 2,000 business leaders from around the world, all about future readiness muscle. Following week, Barlow World in Johannesburg, Sun City. So I'm always traveling every week to different parts of the world. I'll be in Boston soon as well at MIT. So catch me at a conference as well.
Beautiful. And I got to correct myself. I think I said neologism. Neologisms is what I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody for.
I was going to clear it every time, but I thought I'd let it slide.
With that malapropism, yeah, why not? Why not? A little last nod to Shakespeare. Terence, great pleasure. Maybe see you in Boston when we're out.
I'll see you in person soon. Thanks, Tim.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.